We are talking about the first chapters of the auditing standards, statements and guidance notes. My dear student, you must be wondering in your mind, the questions are coming up, what are these auditing standards, what are these statements, what are these guidance notes, and how they are relevant for the exams, and how they are being termed differently if all these three are being issued by the Institute of Chartered Accountants. So why they are naming it by these three names? Dear student, standard on auditing give the guidance to the auditors, not the guidance, it tells to the auditors how to conduct an audit in a particular situations. Take a case, for example, there is a auditing standard of risk assessment. There is an auditing standard of sampling. How do you have to sample? Because during the process of auditing, you must have seen that you are not doing the 100% vouching or you are not doing the 100% checking. You are selecting a sample. Maybe you may be checking a 10% transactions. How do you select those 10%? What is the process you are following for that 10%? Why 10%? Why not 5%? Why not 20%? This you are doing as per the auditing standards of sampling. That auditing standard tells how to select the samples. What will be your basis of selecting samples? So dear student, everything you have every guidance for each and every subjects. Only thing what you have to do, that you have to just read it and understand those. During the process of auditing, auditors relies on and he takes the help of the expert. He uses the report of the expert. For example, as per the accounting standard 15, the provisions for gratuity has to be made on. That estimation is very difficult. And there is a one expert who make a provisions under so many uncertainty is a actuarial. You get an actuarial report. Based on that, the company makes a provisions for gratuities. But as an auditor, you have to check it, verify it. While you will be relying on the report of the actuary, who is the expert, how do you have to rely? Where you should not rely, what types of due diligence process you will apply to the report of the expert, that is actuary. You have auditing standards for it. So dear student, we have got a guidance under these auditing standards for each and every situations. For each and every situations you have a guidance. So what are the standard on auditing? You have presently 37 standard on auditings, and they give a guidance, they give principles how to conduct an audit, what are the responsibilities of the auditors, and they are mandatory in nature. Understand? These auditing standards has been made mandatory under the Companies Act. Till the new Companies Act, those auditing standards were made mandatory by the Institute of Chartered Accountants to its members. It was not having any legal force. But today, after the Companies Act 2013, you have a section 143 which talks about that these auditing standards prescribed by the Institute of Chartered Accountants are mandatory to follow while doing the auditing by the auditors. Now see the importance now. And what will be the consequence if you don't follow it? The consequence is the penalty under that particular sections. So that's the importance of these auditing standards. So they are the standards which gives the guidance to the auditors. It also describes what is the responsibility of the auditors. It also says that how you collect audit evidences. They also gives you a guidance about how you document those evidences, documentation of those evidences. So these are the guidances given, and they are mandatory not only by the chartered accountants but now under the Companies Act also. So those are the standard on auditing. They are 37. Out of 34 are applicable to 34 auditing standards applicable to each and every type of audits, and there are 3 specific situations auditing standards in the series of 800, 805, 810. They are for a particular situations, but in total they are 37. Now, what is the statement on auditing? They are also mandatory, issued by the Institute of Chartered Accountant. They are the statement, means the Chartered Accountant Institute say that this is my expectation from my member, that please comply with this. That's the statement. It is not a guidance as such, but they say that the Chartered Accountant should do like this, should comply with these standards, these law like this guidance, not like this. Just like you have a statement on, earlier it was a 227 section, now it may be another one about the Institute of Chartered Accountant has issued a statement. They are also mandatory. Mandatory means that every chartered accountant has to comply with that one. So what that statement says? It says that the members who is doing the auditing should comply with this particular law, particular standard like this. So that's the statement. They are mandatory. Now comes the guidance notes. You see, the standard on auditing is done and issued after a due research. There is a process of issuing the standard on auditing. In the Institute of Chartered Accountants, there is a one called Auditing and Assurance Board. So that Auditing and Assurance Board of the Institute of Chartered Accountants forms one group for particular subject on which the standard is being issued. So that group of experts prepare the standards, it goes to the auditing standard boards, they publish it and the exposure draft to invite a comment from the general public and the stakeholders. And after due discussions, again in the auditing and standard boards, they finalize it, go to the council of the Institute of Chartered Accountants, and then they issue the standards. So the due process is followed for issuing the standard, means there is a lot of research in that one, and standard means now this is the final thing. But sometimes what happens, there are some new subjects comes in, there are no standard on that particular subjects. The Institute of Chartered Accountants gives the guidance to its member that how to deal with this subject, how to do the auditing of these one. You have some, the government has imposed the MAT, this minimum alternate tax on the companies. Now how to audit it, how to account for it, the Institute of Chartered Accountant issues the guidance notes on accounting, guidance note on auditing, how to audit it. So these are the guidance to the members. Members is supposed to follow that guidance. But sometimes it happens, as I told you, that on this subject, because the due research has not been done, it is a somewhat intermediary, or for the time being, the Institute of Chartered Accountant has issued the guidance to its members that how to conduct an audit in that situations. They are doing the research on this subject to come to the particular standards. And it is possible that guidance note, the guidance given under that notes, the members has got a different situation, that in that situation it will be difficult to comply with that guidance note of the Institute of Chartered Accountants. Then the members has to write in his report that why he is not able to comply with that guidance notes. What you can say that no doubt standard on auditing is mandatory. Statement on auditing, its It's an expectation from the Institute of Chartered Accountant to that my member should comply with this statement. And if he is not complying, please write why I am not complying. In case of a guidance note is given, they are not a perfect standards. They are being researched, that subject is still perfect, but it's a guidance to the members how to conduct auditing in that particular subjects or situations. And if the member feels that in my situations this guidance note is, I cannot follow exactly this one, he has to deviate, then he has to write in his report to why he is deviating from the guidance note of the Institute of Chartered Accountants. So these are the various standard on auditing, statement on auditing, guidance note. But dear student, from the examination point of view, what's important is the standard on auditings. Yes, essay. What is important is essay, standard on auditing. And there are, I told you that 3 other types of standards. They are called review standards. We call them SRE, Standard on Review Engagement. You have got SAE, Standard on Assurance Engagement, and you have got SRE, Standard on Related SRS, Standard on Related Services. On these 3 types of services, they are everywhere there are 2 standards, and in total they make 37 auditing standards, 6 these standard 43. You have got a 1 quality control standard SQC1, and in total they becomes 44. So it's all these 44 you have to go through. Dear student, these are the structure of standards issued by the Auditing and Assurance Standards Board under the authority of the Council of the ICAI. And as I have already explained to you that they are of 4 categories. And above that there is a 1 standard on quality controls. Standard on quality controls. And that's a quality control standard. It's not an auditing standard, it's a quality control standards. I will be discussing it with you, what is that quality control standard is. But apart from this, the chartered accountants in practice renders the services like, he renders the attestation services, which is called auditing. He certifies something, he issues reports. There are auditing standards, they are called standard on auditing. And in case of a standard on auditing, when he certifies, when he issues the report after examination following a due process of auditing, he gives assurance, he expresses the opinion, and through that opinion he gives assurance to the user of the financial statement and user of his report. He gives assurance that it is fairly presented, everything is true and fair. It is not absolute one, he does not give a guarantee, but he gives his assurance that from the examination it looks that they are true and fair. It is a highest standard of assurance compared with the auditor gives when he follow the due process of auditing. When he do the auditing by these 37 auditing standards, then he is able to express and give this highest level of assurance to the stakeholders, to the reader of his reports, whosoever is interested in the reports, that yes, it's true and fair. But dear student, you must be doing some quarterly audit, quarterly review. And in the quarterly review, the report is framed differently than the audit report under SA 700. There are 3 standards which gives the reports, the formats of the audit reports, SA 700, 705, 706. But when you are doing the review, you are not doing the auditing, the quarterly review is done by not by these 37 auditing standards. We have got for them the 2 standards, which are called Standard on Review Engagement, SRE. And there are two standards, 2400, SRE 2400 and 2410. And here the assurance, the comforts given by the auditors are not of that level which are given after doing the auditing, but he is doing only the review, and the level of assurance is lesser than the whatever is in auditing. Auditing is the highest level of assurance. Then you have a lower level of assurance in case you are doing the review. And how that review should be done? It is written in these review standards. These two review standards are there. We have a standard on assurance engagement. Dear student, you may be wondering, now you have a question in your mind. That's what the difference between the standard on auditing and the standard on assurance. Because auditing itself are the assurance standards. By following those auditing standards, he gives assurance to the stakeholders. But what types of assurance he gives here? He also gives assurance after following the standard on auditing, 37 standard on auditing. He also gives an assurance after following these two standards on standard on assurance engagement, that is called SAE. The assurance standards are only two. So what is the difference between these two? Dear student, when we are talking about the auditing standards, SA, they are 37, 34 for all, 3 for specific circumstances. After following 37 standards, he gives a assurance, highest level of comfort. He also gives assurance in case of SAE, standard on assurance engagement. What's the basic difference? Dear student, you know that our accounting is a historical accounting. And you write a history in your books of accounts. The company writes a history in the books of accounts, all history, not future. We have a standard on auditing. In 37 standard auditing, it says that how this historical information should be audited, how these historical accounts should be audited. But suppose the client comes to you and he says that I have to borrow the money from the banks, and banks want the projected balance sheet and projected profit or loss and projected cash flows. That's not a historical information. That's a future information, projected. We are competent enough, and we have a competent guidance and we have a sufficient guidance under these 37 auditing standards how to audit a historical informations, historical accounts. They have no guidance that how to audit a future accounts, estimated and the projected accounts. The projected accounts guidance is given under standard assurance engagement, the prospective financial statements. Now, we have another type of services that is called related services. Sometimes the chartered accountants are asked to prepare the balance sheet, profit and loss account. Dear student, as you know that the financial statement preparation responsibility is with the management, it's not with the auditors. But sometimes the chartered accountants is given an engagement that please prepare our balance sheet and profit and loss statements and cash flows. Then what should he do? He is not being asked to audit it, he is being asked, and the engagement is, the assignment is that please prepare for us and compile this information for us. They are called a related service. How the auditor should do that, discharge his responsibility under these assignments, what types of report he should issue, whether he should give assurance somebody or should not give assurance. For them we have a two standard which are called standard on related services, and they talks and they give a guidance to the chartered accountant about this. So dear student, that is the total the standards. They are called engagement standards, engagement and quality control standards. These all standards which I told you that 43, they are engagement standards. We will be discussing all those standards in the process. I told you this auditing is a process, and in that process, whenever we need a guidance of that particular subject, we will go to the particular relevant standards, and I will discuss those in that process. I have told you that how the auditing standards, standard and auditings are issued by the AASB of the Institute of Chartered Accountants. Do you have a structures on auditings? These all essays has got parts. Parts is that first the auditing standard says it gives an introduction why they are making these standards. It gives an objective, what is the objective of issuing the standards, for in what situation it will be applied. It has a certain definitions. And the most important part of the standard and auditing, the requirements, which says that what is expected from the auditor, how the auditor should follow, what is his liability if he does not do like this. So that's the requirement of the statement, and that's the important part which you have to understand. So in every auditing standards, on a standard on auditing, please be very careful, be very attentive when the question of requirements of that standards comes. And then that standards also give some explanatory and application guidance that helps you to understand that in standards. It gives us situations, examples, and how, in what situation it is applied and how it is applied. So that gives a ample guidance for that one. But dear students, these all standards are very technical in nature. They have no commentary in your pronouncement books. So it is better, I suggested, please follow this Student Guide to Auditing Standard books, where the commentary is given, examples are given, and they are somewhat a summary of it, and you will be able to understand those ones. So dear students, that is all about the first chapters of the introductions of that auditings. But as I told you that we have one standard on quality controls. Standard on quality controls. That is not auditing standards. There are 37 auditing standards. 6 other engagement standards, 43. The SQC one is not auditing standards. It's a quality control standards. You may be wondering, what is this quality control standard is? What do you mean by quality controls?